So these are all the actions that we have, okay? And we're now want to go through a setup where we're going to add new actions. And one of those actions is going to involve the ability to actually log in a user, okay? So let's just think about this for a second, okay? What do we need to do? We need to be able to, firstly, allow a user to register, and then we need to allow that user to actually log in. And in doing so, we'll need to actually have information saved onto the actual database itself. So if I just try and do my looking for my whiteboard, which I can't see. Where is it? So I'll just stop sharing. Okay. So it's going to be login, we'll just call it. Okay. Right, so you can see the whiteboard there, yeah? So we're back in here. So there's two things we need to register, and we also need then to log in. So they're the two things that are required. Okay. Now, from that, we also need some other stuff. So we'll also need a database table, which we want to call users. Okay. So we will use PHP to make the table. Okay. Now, when we register, seasicky there. So when we register, if I can ever figure out how to use this thing. Okay, there it is. So we need to show the form, okay? So that means inside of our MVC, okay, I need to have a new case. Show register. Okay. And inside that, what do we need? So we'll need, say, a username. Well, let's go with simple enough, right? Email, password. I'm just going to leave it like that. Not now. I want to keep this kind of simple enough, okay? And then obviously submit. So that's the three pieces of information that I want. Now, normally on a generalized registration form, you might have date of birth, you might have address, you might have another another input for password, so that you could do a little bit of JavaScript to double check that the password is right. You might well have on your form such things as, you know, forgot a username, forgot password. Okay, so they're all just little features. If in here you wanted to have that, you know, that you're going to have the forgot password feature, right? What does that actually mean? That just means inside here, I need to have a case, which is password. Okay. And I'll put in all the information I need there. Okay. I'm going to have show register. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have this here, show the register form, and somebody will then submit it. And at that stage, what will happen then is we need to process the register page. What does process in the register page mean? Okay, need to save in the database. Okay, so everybody with me there? Then for the login, we need to have show login. And then we'll also need to have a process. Oops. Now, in conjunction with that, then we also need another thing, which is start sessions. Now, what happens with start sessions is, right, starting sessions is a very interesting concept, because what we actually do is on the server, right? Remember, the server is supporting all of the clients that are coming in. So there could be a couple of hundred clients at any one time. And what we're actually going to try and do is we want to try and keep tabs of each client individually. However, HTTP does not have that feature built inherently into it, okay? Because HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is a stateless protocol. So it sends a request, it gets a reply, full stop, okay? Sends a request, gets a reply, full stop. If we want to have some kind of permanency from it and make it stateful, in other words, that when we get a request, we can say, oh yeah, I know who that is, right? And then when we send a reply, we're sending it back to somebody who knows who it is, okay? Now, what we're looking at is in starting sessions, right, is to give the ability of stateful. Okay? And we do that using a session ID. Okay, session ID is just a alphanumeric string that has been created by the server, and it's sent as part of the reply from the server to the client. The client, when it gets that, okay, it will actually save it as a cookie on the client machine. And what it will then do, okay, is every time that it's communicating back with that URL, it will send that session ID. when the server gets a request for running a program like index.php, one of the things we need to do is we need to start the session and see if there is a session ID, see if it's part of the global variables that are part of every HTTP communication. You have your $_get, your $_post. You also have your $_session. So if there is a session ID, the program now knows, okay, this is somebody I've been communicating with previously. And what we actually can do is when we start a session ID or a session, we have a space on the server, a memory space on our server that we can actually reserve. And we can actually store data in there that's useful to us, okay? So I could, for example, store the user ID. I could, for example, store the user type. Okay, so if I have a number of different users, I could have a session variable that's the user type. And that information I would have got from the actual table itself, the users database table. I could then in my code have certain pieces of code blocks that can only be executed if you're a particular type of user. So if I have your user type of admin, I could have some code that says if $user type not equal to admin, then you can't do this. Okay, or I could have it that if your $user type is equal to admin, then you can't do this. Okay, so it's an important piece to put together. So as part of our login process, we would start the session and we would save some variables. So what we're doing is we're saving some variables for this session ID, okay, up on the server. So the next time this session ID comes back, what the actual PHP or index.php program will do is it will get access to those session variables and it can then make decisions on what to happen based on the values of those session IDs. You can store whatever you like as your session ID, okay? You don't want to store too much because it takes memory. And if you've got just one user, okay, not a big deal, okay? If you have a couple of hundred users, that can become a bit of a problem, okay? So try and be selective with what you actually save on the server itself, okay? So what we have now, if we go back to our code here, is we've got show register. We're going to have a case process register. We're going to have a case show login. Another case login. Okay. Is everybody okay with that to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody happy enough? Okay, so what I want you to do, what I'm going to do here is I'll just yeah, what'll I do? I shall be good and I'm going to put this up on Moodle, and what I want you guys to do is to download it and set it up. Okay, so I'll actually put it in here in the MVC section. Okay, so that's there. So what I want you to do is download that and put it into your XAMPP or HTDocs folder in XAMPP, and then when open up the project and so forth. Now, I'll give you a few minutes to get that done. I'll take a breather. Anybody, any questions? So if somebody just wants to tell me there when they're when you're all ready to move on. Everybody got that up and running?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, right. So what we're going to look at here now is we'll start off with the show register, right? Now, what do we need to do to show a register, right? On this, if we look at our help a bit more if I shared the screen. Okay, so we know that on our application, okay, this is what our application normally looks like. So we kind of have a decision and say to ourselves, right, well, for the registration page, what do we need to show? And you need this top bit, obviously the header, you need the bottom bit for your footer, but you don't really need anything else here, okay? Or do you? All right. You think of things and you say, right, what if somebody goes and clicks the show register button by mistake and they want to get back? So you might have a home button, okay? What if you might have somebody register and they might want to log in? That's a different thing. You're just concentrating one page at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it so that when somebody registers, I've got this kind of gray area here in the middle for my page, okay? But I'm not going to have the thing here. I could have maybe a home link somewhere on here if I wanted to, okay? Or I might have the issue here with categories that I'm going to change that to have another one down here called home, or maybe have it up at the top. It's up to you to decide, right? However, it does affect what you're going to do, because if you're going to keep this, then inside here, we need to have for show register, have dollar categories is equal to get categories. And the reason we need that is that we want to be able to show these links here, okay? So if that's a requirement, that's what we need to do. Now, if we want to add a home button here, all we have to do back here, and we can go into our view, and we know that's the aside. So here at the very beginning, before the URL, well, actually here, we could do li. It's going to be copy that for laziness. I can just leave that as href as that. Let's put that first in PHP. So I'm just going to have a href that says home. Okay, save that. So now if I look at my page, I've got the home button here, and I'm clicking the home button. It's going to bring me back. Okay. You see there as well, by doing it like that, see the way here, if I click drums, the category ID is 3. If I look at the home now, you'll see at the very bottom of the page down there that the category ID is 3. That's the difference, because what I've actually put here in my code is I just left the H reference as being that. If I put a period there, save it. So now the href is just controller. So if I click base, that category ID, if I hover on home, it just says controller / and that'll go to the index.php without passing a value whatsoever. Okay. So you see the subtle difference there? Here, when I look at the link for home, you'll see it in the bottom hand corner. It just says controller /. If on the other hand, I get rid of that, so I just have quote, quote, it'll remain at what it was at. So if I go for drums, here the category ID is equal to 3. So if I hover over home, it's down there, it's got and question mark, category ID is equal to 3. So it stays at the same one. So there's subtle differences that are in there that we probably start get noticing. So that's that, right? The next thing is I want to be able to display a page that has the registration form, okay? So what I need to do is I need to have something that allows me to add the form, okay? Now here is the product add page, and it's add product. It's got a form in it, okay? It does certain things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that, I'm going to file save as, and I'm going to have it as add user. Maybe I got it as, or better would be show registration. Okay, it doesn't matter what you call it. Okay, I have a habit though of trying to call it the same name that I use here. So I should have called it show underscore register, right? And why do I do it like that? Because what I'm going to have to do at some stage is to include and it's going to be / view, because I'm in the controller. I need to get up. So / is taking me up one level, and then I need to go into view. So view, and it's going to be product dot. I just forgot that doesn't work. Show registration.php. Okay. Now, what I also need is somewhere to somehow get to this point here. Okay. So I need to go back into my side, and maybe here, it'll be more likely at the bottom. Make action equal to show register. Maybe something like join up or register or whatever you want to call it. Okay. So now if I go back to this page, I've got join up. If I look at that, you see at the very bottom of the page, it's got the URL, it's got and question action equals show register. So if I click on it, it goes and it shows what looks like add product. That's only because it's got show register here. And of course, I haven't changed the show register page. So this is going to be change that to registration page. So we see that that's changed to registration page. Now, just for your info, right, the reason that changed automatically is because in my NetBeans, the browser type that I'm using is this one, the browser Chrome with the NetBeans connector. So that means whenever I save something, it will automatically update the page. Okay. Now, this is going to be the registration page. And if we go back to my Teams. Don't know where it's gone to. I've lost the so here was my whiteboard. So we want email, password, and submit are the two pieces that we want. Back in here, right? The action, I'm now going to set to nothing, okay? So that's going to stay on the same page, and I can leave the ID there if I want to. I'm going to have a hidden input whose value is action, and it's going to be equal to process register, okay? So what that means is when somebody clicks on this button, show registration.php, it is going to then go to send an action value of process underscore register back. Right, and then we're going to have, let's say we're not going to have this. Now, we know that there's two things, and we might as well set both. We have ID and name. ID is used by the server or by the client. Okay, so JavaScript uses the ID. We use email, or sorry, name is used then by the name is used by the server. Okay, so what this means is because we're using the method post, when this form is submitted, a variable with a name of email will be sent across to the server with whatever content has been issued in. Because we've put the type here as being email, it has to conform then to having the @ symbol and a period after the unit. And then here we're going to put password. So type is going to be password. So that means that when we start typing into it, it's going to be asterisks that are showing up. If we just leave it as text, what would actually show up would be the actual text we're typing, which isn't great. Then we'll call it password. Enter password. Now you could have all sorts of stuff there, like the you know, have an uppercase, lowercase, blah blah blah, number so many digits long, and all that kind of good stuff. We're just going to have it like that. Okay. So now when I look at this page, okay, we see now it's got a user email and password, and then I can click this to register. And when I register, it will have an action value here. Should have an action of show register. Oh, that's not right. I don't know what's happened. process register doesn't have that happening here, right? So what I would need to do with something like process register then, okay, is to display the login page, okay? So again, for that, essentially just going to get this, copy it. And this is going to be show login. Okay. Now, with this though, what's happened is I've registered, I've come into process register, but I haven't done anything, okay? So what's happening here now is show underscore login. I don't have that. I haven't created that page. Show login. So it'll show the page, and obviously I have to make changes to that page then. Login page, obviously just 2 pieces of information on it, and change that then to login. So it'd look a bit like that, okay? Then when I press login, it would then need to go to the show there it needs to be here. What's happening here is we show the registration. Oh yeah, missed a step, sorry. Show the registration. Okay, then when we get the process register, what we have to do a couple of things, right? We have to firstly get the variables from the post, okay? So we might have $email. We have to filter input. INPT post email. And then we have a dollar password. That's going to be equal to again, remember that these are all case sensitive, okay? So what's happening here is when we come back to this process here, I'm just going to put a breakpoint there. And what we'll do is we'll just run, debug the file. So we come in here, I'm going to go to join up. It allows me then to put in register. It stops there because what's happened here is actually stopped here. If I look at the variables now, and if I look at my super globals, I'll see I've got a post. And inside the post, I've got an action, which is a string, and it's got process underscore register. Email, which is a string, and it's peter@me.me. I've got password, which is a string, and it's 123. Okay, so they're available now as part of the post. But in a wee while, when I go back and do a reply, I'll lose them. Okay, so I need to save them. Now, they are in this global variable area, and it's good practice to make local variables of them. So that's why we're doing the filter input here. So now at this point here, I will have a local variable called email, which will have the value of email in it. If I do a 7, so now we see here, I have a value called email, and it's got the value inside of it there. So the debug can be really, really handy here. So what do I need to do now? I need to save it in the database. And after that, I need to tell it where to go, okay? So what I can do, what we've been using here is we've been including the show registration.php page, right? So that's part of the response. There is another thing that we can do, right? So what I could do here is I could actually tell it, right, I want you to go to a different place, right? I want you to go to a location which will actually show the that page, right? In actual fact, I want to do that here. Show the registration. It sends it down to here, process the registration. And now I need to tell it where to go. So I'm going to tell it to go and show the login, right? So how do I do that? This is where I use the header. Okay, so I'll go header, bracket, and the location, colon. So this is like the a JSON, JavaScript object notation. We separate, we have the variable name and colon, and then we have the value, okay? So the value is going to be question action equals, so we want to go to, sorry, show underscore login. And actually, sorry, I don't need that value there. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to go back to itself, pass a variable action, which is going to be show login, and that'll go down here. So join up. So it brings me down to the login page, and here then I can put in my value if I so wish. Okay, and log in. However, I have not saved it on the database. Okay, so what I would need to do now is I would need to actually create obviously the table and then write a function. Okay, to be able to add the user to that. Right now, I'm going to leave it at that point here now. Right. Just stop sharing the screen. And what I'd like you to do is to bring it to that level, okay? But I also want you then to create the user table, and I want you to actually insert the user into the user table. When we start again on tomorrow, what we will do is we will carry on from that, and we'll see what do we do when we actually get to login. Okay?
Yep. Can you real quick show the registration page again? The registration form.
Certainly can. It's a very simple registration form.
Yeah.
Whoops. So all that's there on show registration is the form action I've set to null, right? The method is post. Just you don't actually need that ID.
Yeah.
The input type hidden, name of action, and its value is process underscore register. That needs to be whatever you've called this.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever that happens to be, you call it that.
You see, what if you say in like what if you take the value and put it instead of action and get rid of that line completely?
Well, what would happen there? You're talking about a situation where for action here you'd have
process register.
No, what you'd have to do is you'd have to have question mark action equals process register.
Right. Okay. But is it identical? Like it does the same job or no?
It does the same job. I think it's handier. It's neater, I think, because what's going to happen then is the action, when you are fulfilling the okay, if you take it right, if you do it that way, right, when you come into here, process register, right, the URL, the reply URL is going to be action equals process underscore register. Okay. So when we change the location like this, you'd have to do that differently. You'd have to be specifically saying it's index.php question mark action equals show underscore login. It's a bit like, you know, the way I was shown earlier on with the home page,
right,
and whether or not you could actually carry through the category ID depending on what way you set up the aside. Remember, I had
so technically better to have form action left blank and then just have a hidden input.
Having it, that would be, I think that would be the better way of doing it. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Now you're right. It would work. Okay. It's just, see, what you have to be aware of when you do something. There's lots of different ways we can get this to work.
Yeah.
But if you do something, you have to remember that you've done that, because when you want to do something else, that may or may not have an impact on where you are, okay, or where it thinks it actually is. Like, we're saying it's on index.php, but it isn't actually. If you go with that action question mark action equals php, or sorry, action equals process underscore register, it's actually on index.php question mark action equals process underscore register, which is different than index.php.
Right. No, because I remember on mine I have action, like form action equals, and then action question mark action equals, instead of I didn't have the input.
Yeah, the hidden input is the handier way of doing it, because what it also means is when say that action comes in, that'll actually be taken as a get, because it's part URL.
All right.
And it, okay, now we are handling that capturing the action as a post or a get, but it can sometimes throw a little bit of confusion in there. You're using get or post.
So then if you click register, the name equals action will go as an action variable, well, as a value for
the variable action will be passed as a post variable.
Right. And then
now, if you have action, if you have the form action equals to a question, action equals process underscore register, then action will go as a get variable. Okay, see here, question mark action equals, I'm just going to call it test2.
Yeah.
Right. And we still have the hidden one here. So if I go in here, oh, sorry. So I've got a breakpoint there. That's good. So debug. So I go to join up. So now, if I go to my super globals, if I look at get, I've got action, string, test2.
Yeah.
Go to post, I've got action, string, process underscore register.
Right.
So there are two different things. Okay.
Right. Okay. Okay. And can you go back to the registration?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and what would you have for your submit button then?
Sorry, it's just here, submit.
All right, I have both of them lowercase, so I thought it's like, all right, okay. So the value in the actual button is just the name of the button.
That's just the name of the. That's just what's going to be displayed in the button. So, like if I make that.
Yeah. No, I just had it because both of my values on hidden input and a value on a submit input, they all had the same name and same capitalization.
Okay.
So it confused me a bit.
No problem. No problem. Is that okay then? Happy?
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody else, how are you getting on there? Everybody happy enough? So what we'll try and do is try and get it to that level by our class tomorrow, which is at, I guess we're going to have at 2 o'clock. And what I'll do then tomorrow is we'll go over getting the. I want you to make a stab at getting the user table set up. But I'll go through that and we'll go through sessions and setting up sessions then tomorrow. Okay.
Yep.
And if anybody, as I said, wants to have a one-on-one to discuss their CA2, feel free to do so. What I'll probably do, in fairness, because the reason for doing this is I'll probably give you a second attempt for those that want to, okay, to resubmit it, but at a much reduced level. So probably it'll be like, I don't know, there's 25% for that one, so I'll probably cap it at 15%. And mark it harder. But if anybody, it's important that you know how to do what we were planning to do with, or what I had hoped would be done with CA2. Okay, so if it takes this week and next week to get that sorted, I don't mind. But I want to get that done because there's no point in going ahead otherwise. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I'll be here if anybody needs that and just gives a shout. I'll just knock the mic off on that. Okay. And I will work on getting that